Jai. All glories to the devotees of Santiago. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Preshtaya, Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin, Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve, Guovradan Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Desha Charine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajaka Stotra Sattasi Siman, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacha Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Koho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath, Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Guovradan Ki Jai. Vrndavana Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Yamuna Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the devotees of Santiago, Chile. May Krishna bless you, protect you, and maintain you. So today, we're going to go through very quickly the entire Krishna-lila that is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Before I begin, I will chant the 10-syllable mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarar Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. So, sometime in the last few years, I went through the entire Krishna book, which is Srila Prabhupada's summary of the Krishna-lila, the 10th canto, and I broke it out into different divisions and sections according to topic. And you can hear all of that, as for the past few years, I recorded the entire Krishna book, my version, and it is on my website, nirantara.com. So today I'm only going to do a don't have that much time. But you can, at any time, you can listen to the entire recording that I did of Krishna book. With that, I will begin. So actually, the Krishna-lila, you can say, actually begins in the 9th canto. In the 9th canto, we hear about Krishna's ancestry, his predecessors. You've all heard so many times, O descendant of Bharat. So that is the beginning of the dynasty of Krishna. So you can read the story of Maharaj Bharat. Then after that is the story of Ranti Dev, who was tested by Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Then in the 9th canto, you have the complete listing by Shukadeva Goswami of Krishna's ancestry. Then also in the 9th canto is the story of the birth of Karna from the combination of Suryadev and Kunti. And then at the end of the 9th canto, before beginning the 10th, Shukadeva Goswami summarizes Krishna-lila in a few verses. That's at the end of the 9th canto. That final chapter, Prabhupada describes it as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Then the 10th canto begins. And the first incident is Mother Bhumi, feeling overburdened, approaches Lord Brahma, and they all go, the demigods, all go to the shore of the ocean of milk and offer prayers to Shiro Dakashayi Vishnu, who is actually Super Soul in your heart. And at that time, there is a message transmitted to the heart of Brahma. And the message is that all the demigods should expand themselves and take birth in the Yadu dynasty, for which Krishna would soon appear. Then the next scene, what I did was I broke out the 10th canto according to different scenes. So the next scene is Devaki and Vasudeva coming home after their marriage, and Kamsa is handling the chariot when he hears the omen that he will be killed by the 8th child of his sister Devaki. And Kamsa lets go of the horses, grabs Devaki's hair with one hand, pulls out his sword in the other hand, and is about to kill Devaki. Then we come to the next scene. Vasudeva expertly preaches to Kamsa, trying to save the life of Devaki. And Vasudeva comes up with many different angles of vision, but he's not able to convince Kamsa until finally Vasudeva says, okay, it said that Devaki would give birth and it would be the 8th child. So Vasudeva said, I will promise to turn over all of my children to you, and you can do whatever you want with them. Not just the 8th. I'll give you all of the children. So that convinced Kamsa, because Vasudeva, unlike Kamsa, is a devotee. And because Vasudeva is a devotee, you can trust his word. A demon's word, they cannot be trusted. But the words of otherwise, why did Krishna tell Arjuna, you declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes? Because the devotee's word can be trusted. So Kamsa knew, well, Vasudeva is not like me, so I will trust in Vasudeva. And sure enough, 1 year after the other, Devaki gave birth. And when the first child appeared, Kirtiman, Vasudeva kept his word and brought the child to Kamsa. And Kamsa said, well, you know what? By this time, Kamsa had a little change in heart. So Kamsa said, well, actually, I'm not worried about this first child. The omen said the 8th child. So you can take back your first child, because I'm only interested in that 8th child. And Vasudeva was thinking, oh my God, I have dodged a bullet. I have done it. But then, who comes on the scene? Narada Muni Vajaya Vina Radhika Ramana Name. Narada comes to stir the pot. And everyone, demons, devotees, they respect Narada. Why? Because he is pure representative of Narayan. Nobody has a problem with Narada. So Narada was welcomed by Kamsa. And Narada said, oh, Kamsa, do you know that in your previous life you were a demon? Because Narada is Trikalagya. He can see past, present, and the future. And so Narada told Kamsa, in your last life you were known as Kalanemi, and you were killed on the shore of the ocean of milk. At the time the demigods and demons were churning the ocean, and there was a big war after Mohini Murti stole the nectar from the demons who had stolen it from Dhanvantari. And the demigods came out victorious, and on the beach of the shore of the ocean of milk, Kalanemi was killed by Lord Vishnu. So Narada said, guess what? Vishnu is coming again to kill you. And then Narada, even to make it more troublemaker, he said, Kamsa, you know what? I wouldn't trust the omen. The omen said the 8th child, but actually it could be any child of Devaki. So when Kamsa heard that, immediately he killed one after the other the 6 children of Devaki. When Devaki became pregnant the 7th time, he was transferred, the child was transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini. And that child is Baladev, whose appearance day we celebrated last week. So that's why Baladev is known as Devaki Nandan. Krishna is known as Devaki Nandan. And Balaram is also known as Devaki Nandan because originally he was in the womb of Devaki. But Krishna told Yogamaya, I want you to attract Balaram out of the womb of Devaki and bring him to the womb of Rohini, another wife of Vasudeva, who is under the care of Nanda Maharaj. So Balaram is known as Rohini Nandan and Devaki Nandan. So externally it appeared that Devaki's 7th pregnancy was a miscarriage. Now comes, after this, the appearance of Krishna, the original Janmastami, where Krishna first of all appears as you see in the picture behind me. You see the picture behind me. This is the original Janmastami. Here is Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison of Kamsa. And the Lord appears in his four-armed form, Narayan, and explains to them that I have previously appeared as your son twice before. I was Prishni Garbha when Devaki you were known as Prishni, and Vasudeva you were known as Asutapa. And then after that, Devaki you were Aditi, and Vasudeva you were Kashyapa. And I appeared as your son Vamanadev and cheated Bali Maharaj out of the universe. Chalayasi Vikramane Balimad Bhuta Vamana Padanaka Nira Janita Janapavana Chalayasi. Lord Vamana cheated Bali out of his kingdom by his tricks. So now Krishna says, this is the 3rd time I am appearing as your son, and this is your last birth in this material world. After this, you are returning to my abode in the spiritual sky. And Krishna told his parents, the reason I appeared first in this four-armed form is to convince you that I have come. Otherwise, if I had appeared just like an ordinary human child, you may not believe or understand that it is God, it is the Supreme Lord who has appeared. Then Vasudeva and Devaki offered beautiful prayers. And lastly, Devaki requested, oh Krishna, please hide yourself, because as soon as Kamsa finds out that you have appeared, he will come with all kinds of weapons to kill you. So please hide yourself. And so Lord Narayan changed himself to look like an ordinary human child. And he was, Vasudeva was instructed, you go to Vrndavana, Gokul, because Yashoda has just given birth to a girl, Yogamaya. I want you to exchange the babies, because I will spend the first 11 years of my life under the care of Yashoda. So Vasudeva did exactly as was told, and in that way Krishna was changed, and the girl Yogamaya was brought back. But I skipped over a whole section. I'm not looking at my notes so well, so I had to go back. So when Krishna was in the womb of Devaki before Janmastami, the demigods would appear to Devaki invisibly, and they would offer prayers to Krishna in the womb of Devaki. And those prayers of the demigods are very, very instructive. They teach us many, many things about the science of God. And they told Devaki, you don't have to worry. Don't worry. You will be protected. Your son will protect you. So, after the switch was made between the babies, and the thing is, when Yashoda gave birth to Yogamaya, she immediately fell asleep and did not remember whether she gave birth to a boy or girl. So when she woke up, she saw this beautiful blackish child, son, and she accepted, this is my son, not knowing that the babies had actually been switched. When Vasudeva returned to the prison house of Kamsa, he put back the shackles, and the baby girl began to cry. And Kamsa heard the crying, and immediately he woke up. Now, this is the 8th child. I'm going to be killed. So in the dead of night, Kamsa came to the prison house and grabbed the girl and was going to dash her on a stone. But immediately the girl slipped from his hands and appeared as Durga Devi. And she chastised Kamsa. You rascal! The child you are looking for has already taken birth somewhere else. And then she disappeared. Notice that for Yashoda, the girl was Yogamaya, the internal spiritual potency. But for Kamsa, the girl appeared as Maya, because Kamsa has no access to the spiritual energy. He cannot see with his sinful eyes. So he saw Durga. She appeared as Durga. But to Yashoda, she appeared in her original form as Yogamaya, the internal spiritual potency. So when Durga left, Kamsa realized, oh, I have made a big mistake. And Kamsa actually became repentant. And he begged forgiveness. Oh, I believed the words of the omen, and I have killed your 6 children. You please forgive me. I'm sorry. And Vasudeva and Devaki are so noble, so great, so highly elevated. Immediately they forgave Kamsa. This to me is impossible to comprehend. You can imagine if somebody had killed 6 of your sons and then you forgive that person. We cannot understand the heart and mentality of great exalted devotees, such as Vasudeva and Devaki, the mother of God. I cannot fathom how that is possible, but they did that. But after this so-called act of contrition, the next day when Kamsa returned and woke up and met with his ministers said, no, what are you talking about? We should immediately execute a plan to kill all the newborn children, because Durga said the 8th child that he's looking for had already appeared somewhere else. So Kamsa's ministers said, we should kill all the newborn children. So that's exactly what they did. They went throughout the towns and villages, killing all the children. Meanwhile, in Vrndavana, Nanda Maharaj has a great festival because at an old age, he had finally had a son. Usually, to have a son in one's old age is not very likely because the man has lost potency. So it was a great occasion that in his elder age, Nanda Maharaj was able to give birth to a son. And so it was a great festival. Then Nanda Maharaj had to go to Mathura in order to pay the taxes to Kamsa. So just see, I know none of us likes to pay taxes, but it has been going on since time immemorial. And Nanda Maharaj paid his taxes. He was not a cheater. He paid his taxes. And on the way, he met his good friend Vasudeva. Yes, they were friends. After all, Rohini and other wives of Vasudeva were living under the care of Nanda, so they were intimately connected as friends. And there was a nice exchange between Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva. And Vasudeva very, very carefully was asking many questions. And then he advised Nanda Maharaj, I think there may be disturbances in Gokula. You should return home very soon, because I think there may be some disturbance. And Nanda Maharaj could not understand, but he believed the words of his son. When Krishna was about 1 month old, a Kachari witch, Putana, arrived in Gokul. And she was famous because she was very expert in killing little children, sucking their blood. She's a Rakshasi. So she disguised herself to look exactly like a goddess herself, like the goddess of fortune. And she arrived at the home of Nanda Yashoda. And because of her beauty, nobody could think, oh, this is a witch coming to kill baby Krishna. No, because she was so beautiful, they immediately accepted her into the home. And Putana could understand, oh, this child is very, very powerful. So powerful. But Putana was thinking, I have smeared very, very deadly poison on my breast. And I will suckle this baby, and he will die from the poison. Now, even though Krishna is 1 month old, still he's God. Still he knows everything. It's not that because he's a baby that he has no intelligence. No. He's fully aware of everything. So Krishna kept his eyes closed because he could see through the disguise of Putana. He could see that actually she was an ugly demoness who had killed so many children. He could understand that she was so bad. He didn't want to see her face. And by closing his eyes, he was dictating something to Putana, encouraging her, go ahead, try to kill me, see what happens. So Putana, even though she could detect that Krishna was so powerful, still she was thinking, I'll be able to kill him. So she took the baby on her lap and tried to feed him with her breast milk. And Krishna immediately grabbed tight and started to suck. And not only did he suck out the milk, but he sucked out the poison and was biting Putana, and she was screaming in so much pain. And she was saying, oh, leave me, leave me. And because she was in so much distress, she had to give up that false Lakshmi form, and she appeared in her original Rakshasi form. And she extended her body into 12 miles. But baby Krishna would not let go, and she dropped dead on the spot. And then all the gopis came, and they applied tilak made of cow dung to different parts of Krishna's body. And they chanted all various mantras, just like we do when we put on tilak. Om Keshavaya Namaha, Om Narayanaya Namaha, Om Madhavaya Namaha. You all do that, right? You all put on tilak and you say the names. Prabhupada says this one is the most important, the face one. So they did that, and they also sprinkled the baby with the dust of the calves, and they took the tail of a calf and circled him around. And they did this because nobody in Vrindavan thinks that Krishna is God. They don't think like that. They think, oh, he's just one of us, and at this point he's just a little baby that needs to be protected by God, not knowing that he already protected himself. So, at this time, after Putana was killed, Nanda Maharaj was on his way home, and he could smell something burning, but it was a very nice smell. It had a very nice aroma, because what they did was, they took the dead body of Putana and chopped it up into pieces and burned it. And because the body had been touched by Krishna, the body became purified. And so it was giving off a nice aroma, having been purified by Krishna. And not only that, Putana was given a place in Krishna's abode where she can relate to him like a mother. Later on, not later, in the third canto, Uddhava says, this is why I worship Krishna. If Krishna can give deliverance to a person who tries to kill him, why should I worship anyone else? Uddhava's conclusion is that nobody is better than Krishna. And that is also my conclusion. Nobody is better than Krishna. After all, Krishna himself says in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which you have heard me say umpteen times. Now I can't remember it. Mattak parataram na anyat. Chapter 7. Krishna had to let me wait a few seconds. Mattak parataram nanyat. There is no truth superior to me. And I accept that statement of Krishna. Then, the next incident is Krishna is still a young child, 1, 2, 3 months old. And there's a festival at the house of Yashoda. And there is chanting, and there's a fire sacrifice, and the Brahmanas are doing their different things and chanting mantras. And so Krishna gets a little sleepy, so Yashoda has many things to take care of. So she puts Krishna underneath a cart. And the child is hungry, and Mother Yashoda has gone off to do things. So he kicks the cart with his small legs, and the cart comes tumbling down, and all the utensils in the cart also spill, but the baby is untouched. And some small children saw this, and they explained, yes, we saw the child kick, but the parents, they said, no. What are these children saying? It's all nonsense. Then the next demon came, Trinnabarta. Trinnabarta came to kill Krishna. He appeared as a whirlwind, and he created a huge dust storm in Gokula, and he grabbed Krishna, and he took Krishna high into the sky. But Krishna was holding on to Trinnabarta, choking and suffocating him, and Trinnabarta had to come down, and he died as he hit the ground being choked by Krishna. And again the gopis came, and they prayed for Krishna's protection. They prayed to Lord Hari, please protect our child Krishna. Then, in another instance, there are 2 times. Twice, Yashoda sees in the mouth of Krishna the universal form. So this first time, Yashoda looks into Krishna's mouth and she sees the whole universe. And momentarily she becomes bewildered. But still, in the next moment, she becomes overwhelmed with maternal affection and she forgets, maybe I'm an illusion. That is still my child. Then it comes time for the name-giving ceremony of Krishna and Balaram. So the family priest of the Yadu dynasty, Garga Muni, comes and he does the name-giving ceremony of Krishna and Balaram. And practically speaking, by various hints, Garga Muni tells Nanda Maharaj, more or less, your child is God. And previously, he was the child of Vasudeva. So therefore, your child is also known by many names, one of which is Vasudeva. And Garga Muni said, don't worry. Whoever is attached to your son will always be protected. So none of you have to worry. Just stay attached to Krishna and you will be protected. So far, we are all protected from COVID, yes? So that's because we are tightly attached to Krishna. And so the name-giving ceremony is performed. And then another time, Krishna's playmates become angry with Krishna. So they lodge a complaint against Krishna to Mother Yashoda saying, oh, Krishna has eaten dirt. Because they want to put Krishna in trouble. And so, Yashoda says to Krishna, what? What are you doing eating dirt? Open your mouth. Krishna said, I didn't eat dirt. My playmates, they're just saying that because they're mad at me. Open your mouth, Krishna. And this time, again, she sees the universal form. But this time, not only does she see the universal form, she sees herself and Krishna within Krishna's mouth. Whoa. And she's thinking, who is this child of mine? Is he God? Is he some demigod? But then immediately Yogamaya overfloods her heart. And again, no, he's just my child. Then there is the explanation of who Nanda and Yashoda were in their previous birth. They were Dara and Drona. And it explains how they performed austerities in order to get Krishna as their child. Then the next section is the famous Damodar Lila. Such a wonderful section of the Krishna-lila. Everybody loves Damodar. Anyone who doesn't love Damodar Lila, I can't help them. Damodar Lila is so attractive. So you know the story so many times you have heard. How Krishna broke the pot of butter and stole the butter and yogurt and was feeding it to the monkeys. And how Yashoda traced out his butter-smeared footprints. And she tried to tie him with ropes, but no matter how much rope she added, it was always 2 fingers too short. And Krishna was showing Yashoda, unless I agree, you cannot bind me. I am Ananta. I am Swarat, completely independent. Don't think you can tie me with ropes. So he's showing not just all of us. You're dealing with the Supreme God. And only if he agrees to be tied up. So, why did Krishna allow himself to be tied up? I'll tell you why. There's a famous song. Mother Yashoda loves little Gopal because he's her little boy. Mother Yashoda loves little Gopal. He gives her transcendental joy. Written by very nice devotee couple, Mother Yashoda. And so, because of Yashoda's pure love, that is the only reason that Krishna allowed himself to be tied up. So we learn from Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Devotion. Krishna is Ajita, unconquerable. And throughout this 10th canto, you see how Krishna is unconquerable. Demon after demon after demon after demon is killed by Krishna. Krishna is undefeated champion of the universe. But there is one thing that is more powerful than Krishna. Love of Krishna. So please remember that always. You cannot capture Krishna with your brain, with your cleverness, with your politics, with your wealth or anything. No. Only by your pure heart, pure loving devotion can you capture Krishna. It doesn't matter you're high or low, man or woman, as we learn in Bhagavad Gita. Mangi parta vyapasritya, yepisu papayonaya. Papayonaya. Prabhupada called me Papayonaya. So it doesn't matter what your material position is. Krishna will only be conquered by your loving devotional service, your pure love. So, when Krishna is now agreed to be tied up, Yashoda ties him to the wooden grinding mortar that he was standing on while feeding the milk and butter and yogurt to the monkeys. And so Yashoda thinks, oh, now I can do my housework. Something I always point out. Even if you're the mother of God, you got to go to work. It's not that you're the mother of God, you can sit back and watch television. No, you have to do your work. So nobody should be lazy. Everybody has to do their prescribed duties. Man, woman, and child. I'm looking at Ranjit's child here. Yes. You also have to do your work. Okay. Krishna is tied up to the grinding mortar. He looks out at the courtyard and he sees two trees, Yamala Arjuna trees, and he says, oh, my devotee Narada wants me to deliver these two trees. I have to keep true the words of my devotee. So Krishna starts to crawl and drag the grinding mortar, and it gets stuck in between the two trees, and Krishna pulls with great strength, and the two trees come crashing down, and out come two demigods, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, the human sons of the demigod Kuvera. And all this time, because they were cursed by Narada. Why were they cursed? Because they were nonsense. They were in the heavenly planets, naked, intoxicated, enjoying with young damsels, when Narada came on the scene, and they didn't even cover themselves. They were so degraded. And Narada said, I have to teach them a good lesson. These are two sons of Kuvera. This is not right. So he cursed them to stand as trees for years and years and years. And while they were cursed as trees, they were simply remembering and thinking about Krishna. So by the time Krishna delivered them, they had become purified in consciousness. And when they came out of the trees, they were in their demigod bodies, and they offered prayers to Krishna. And they were so grateful that Krishna delivered them. And at that time, Krishna told Nalakuvra and Manigriva, You know, it is a great fortune for you that you met Narada Muni. Notice, Krishna doesn't take credit. You have seen me. Somebody else would have said, yes, you have seen me, the great God. No, Krishna gives the credit to Narada, that you have seen Narada. So that was your great fortune. As for me, my only blessing in life is that I saw Prabhupada. Just like Narada, I saw Prabhupada. That was the great blessing of my life. So the two demigods, according to their prayer, were once again reinstated as demigods at the under the care of their father Kuvera. Then the next section talks about different childish activities of Krishna. Krishna and Balaram would do so many naughty activities, behaving like ordinary children. And then the next episode is a fruit vendor came to the home of Nanda and Yashoda, and she had a basket of fruit. And baby Krishna came, and he had seen others had before, when the fruit vendor had come, they would give barter, things in exchange. So Krishna, being just a little baby, he took some grains from the house and offered it to the fruit vendor. And the fruit vendor was so charmed by Krishna that she gave Krishna all the fruits. And then, when she looked at her basket, the fruits were replaced with jewels. So this teaches us, you give to Krishna, the return on your investment is even much greater. We give Krishna just a little something, Krishna will give you so much more. Then the next episode is the next Janmastami. So we have finished 1 year in Krishna's life. Then this section, which I've entitled Gokula, the final episode of Gokula is the Ishkagosti. The Ishkagosti is conducted by Upananda, Nanda Maharaja's brother. And Upananda stands up and says, we have to leave this Gokula because so many demons are coming, trying to disturb and kill Krishna and cause so much disturbance for us. So I have a plan. There is a place we can go called Vrndavana. And near Vrndavan is the Guovradan hill. And so our cows will be very benefited by eating the grass on Guovradan hill. We'll be much happier there if we go to Vrindavan. So everybody agreed, and they decided to leave Gokula, and they went to Vrindavan. So the next section is called Vrndavana Kumar, Krishna's pastimes as a young child, the Kumar age. So first there is a discussion of how Krishna and Balaram would play with the cowherd boys. Then there is the Vatsa Asura, the calf demon. Then killing of Baka Asura. Baka Asura came, tried to swallow Krishna, but Krishna took his beak and bifurcated the duck demon. Krishna is so powerful. And then they return back home to Vrindavan, and they are taken care of by their parents. And when the cowherd boys explain, "Oh, mother, Krishna today killed a duck demon," the parents say, "These children, they talk such nonsense. They don't know, but the boys know. This is our Krishna. He's something special. He's not ordinary." So the next pastime is when Krishna and his cowherd boys go on a picnic. The mothers create a nice picnic basket because the boys at this age, Kumar age, they're allowed to take care of the calves. So in the Kumar age, They play all day in the forest and at the same time take care of the calves who like to eat the grass. Cow life is very simple. Eat some grass, come home. Life is simple. Not have to punch the clock and go on the freeway. No, just eat some grass, play with Krishna, come home. So, the boys decided to have a picnic on this day. And as boys, they were playing. So, each boy was taking another boy's picnic basket and then giving it to another boy. And this way they were passing the picnic baskets all around. And on the way, they saw a huge serpent lying in the middle of the road, Agasura. And this Agasura demon was related to Bakasura and Putana. He was the brother. So this Agasura, Aga means sin. So he's the sinful demon. So this demon took the shape of a huge serpent. And his mouth was wide open. It said that his mouth was so large it touched the sky. That's how big it was. But the simple cowherd boys, they thought, oh, here's a nice cave for us to play in. Let's go and play. But some of them said, no, no, no. Don't you smell this fishy odor coming from the mouth of that serpent? Bad odor. This might be a demon. But then the boy said, even if it's a demon, Krishna will take care of us. See how the cowherd boys think. Krishna, so they entered the cave. And momentarily, Krishna said, wow, my illusory energy is so powerful. So powerful. So Krishna says, but I have to save these cowherd boys. And Agasura's plan was all along that Krishna would enter his mouth, Krishna would close it, Agasura would close his mouth, and Krishna would die, and he would thus avenge the death of his brother and sister. But when Krishna entered and Agasura closed his mouth, Krishna started to expand and expand and expand. And Agasura choked, I suffocated. And the life force, the spirit soul of Agasura, popped out of his skull and waited in the sky like a tiny little star. Spirit spark, brilliant. Then Krishna glanced at the cowherd boys who seemingly had died, but Krishna's glance brought them back to life. All the COVID people wish Krishna would bring them back to life, but not possible. So the cowherd boys and Krishna came out of the mouth of Agasura, and as soon as Krishna came out, the spirit soul, like a meteor, shooting star, entered the body of Krishna and merged and got salvation. Parikshit Maharaj was most astonished to hear about this pastime. So they then continued on to their picnic spot, and Krishna said, here is a nice place for us to have our lunch today. And they tied up the calves, and Krishna sat in the middle, and all the cowherd boys surrounded Krishna. And Krishna displayed a miracle. There was one Krishna surrounded all around by hundreds and hundreds of cowherd boys. But no matter where the cowherd boy was situated, he was seeing Krishna looking at him. Just like I'm looking at you, I have my screen, I can see every one of you, and you can see me. So no matter where they were, everyone was, yes, Krishna Prem, Haribol. Krishna could, the cowherd boy was seeing, Krishna's looking at me. Krishna's miracle. Now, all of a sudden, Lord Brahma decides, who is this cowherd boy? Is this my Lord and Master? I don't think so. Let me try and play a trick. So Brahma, by his mystic power, allured the calves away from their spot and hid them in a cave. And Krishna, oh, this is why I love Krishna. Krishna noticed that the calves were gone. So he told the cowherd boys, you stay. You continue your lunch. I will go and... Now, a rascal will say, hey, you cowherd boys, go and get the calves. I'm still eating. That would be a rascal God. I am God. You go. No. Krishna's not that kind of God. He's the best God. There's no God better than Krishna. He's the God of the gods. He's the best. So he said, I will go find the calves. But Krishna could not find the calves. And while Krishna was gone, Brahma put the cowherd boys to sleep and put them in the cave. After some time, Krishna came back and noticed, now the cowherd boys are gone? This must be the work of that rascal Lord Brahma. He thinks he can play a trick on me? I will show him. How can I return home without the cowherd boys and calves? The mothers will die. So Krishna said, I will become all the cowherd boys and calves. So Krishna expanded himself. These were Vishnu Narayan expansions, direct expansions of Krishna. And each expansion looked exactly like the cowherd boy, every facial feature, and exactly the clothes the child was wearing on that day. And all of the calves the same way were simply looked exactly. And so at the end of the day, as if nothing had happened, all the calves returned to the cows, all the cowherd boys returned home, and their mothers took care of them, bathed them, fed them, everything as if nothing had happened. Now on this day, this took place on Balaram's birthday. So Balaram did not go to the forest on this day. Did not go. So he didn't know what was going on. Just see. And Balaram's Krishna's first expansion. He didn't know. So, for 1 year, for one whole year, this masquerade went on. For 1 year. Finally, at the end of 1 year, the cowherd men were with the cows on the top of Guovradan hill. And the cowherd boys were at the bottom with the calves. And when the cows saw their calves, they came running down Guovradan hill like this. And the cowherd men were like, what's going on here? They couldn't control the cows. And when the cows came to the hill, bottom of the hill, they started licking the calves. And the cowherd men said, what is this? This is most unusual. But then the cowherd men saw their children and they started to smell their child's head and they began to cry tears of love. Balaram is looking at this like, Krishna, what is this? Krishna, what are you doing? This must be your trickery, Krishna. Balaram could now figure it out. Krishna, you're doing something. So Krishna explained that for 1 year, he was maintaining all the cowherd boys and calves. Now for Lord Brahma, it was just a moment because his time clock is different than ours. So 1 year on earth for Lord Brahma is a second, not even a second. You could try to do some calculation. I think Srinam did you once do a calculation on that? I thought you did that once. Anyway, after a moment of Brahma's time, he realized, you know what? I might have made a mistake. So after 1 year, Krishna and his expansions are back at the same scene. All the cowherd boys and calves who are Krishna's expansions are now back at the same spot. And Brahma comes back and says, wait, I stole the cowherd boys and calves. What's going on? So Brahma goes back and sees, yes, the cowherd boys are there. And then he goes back and, wait, what? And Brahma becomes bewildered. And then all of the cowherd boys and calves turn into Vishnu Narayan, just like in my picture. Here you see Krishna in his Narayan form. All the cowherd boys and calves turned because they were actually Narayan. And Brahma felt so insignificant. He felt so humble. He felt so low. And so he decided, I've got to make up for my offense. And then all those Vishnu forms disappeared. And the cowherd boys and calves returned. The original cowherd boys and calves returned. And meanwhile, Krishna is leaning on a tree like this. And Brahma with his 4 heads. Brahma's body is golden. So Bhagavatam explains, it was like a golden stick falling flat on the ground. Boom. And Brahma was crying. He was crying. And he was begging forgiveness. And so this section, Vrndavana Kumar, ends with Brahma offering prayers to Krishna. This is the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. Those prayers of Lord Brahma are so powerful and full of nice Krishna conscious understandings. I highly recommend you study that 14th chapter, the prayers of Lord Brahma, either in Bhagavatam or an easier way to study would be in Krishna book, because Prabhupada gives you his wonderful Bhaktivedanta explanations. And Brahma ends his prayer saying, I may be Lord Brahma, the chief person in this universe. I may be so intelligent. Actually, Brahma is the most intelligent person in the universe. But Brahma says, but actually, I know nothing about Krishna. And anyone who thinks they know something about Krishna, let them think in that way. As far as I'm concerned, I know nothing about Krishna. And you know what? In my next life, if I'm able to take birth as a clump or of grass or a bush outside of Vrindavan, then when the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan come, I'll get the dust of their feet, because these residents of Vrindavan, nobody compares to them. They are the most exalted. I may be Lord Brahma, but these residents of Vrindavan, simple cowherd boys and men and women, they are so exalted. So, at the end of this Vrndavana Kumar section, Parikshit asks a question that he said, why was it that the mothers and cows and fathers were more affectionate to the supposed children who were actually Krishna's expansions than they were to their own children? So Shukadeva Goswami said, yes. The reason for this, he explained. Why are we so attached to this body? Why? Because the soul is there. Because the soul is in the body, we are very attached to the body. Now, why is the soul dear? Because it's related to the super soul. Super soul is within your heart. Super soul is your dearmost friend. Prahlad said that. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. Suhridam sarvabhutanam I am your dearmost friend. So your best friend, after your wife and husband, is Super Soul. And why is Super Soul so dear? Because it expands from Krishna. And so Shukadeva Goswami says, ultimately, Krishna is the supreme lovable object. Okay, we'll stop there. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So my next section that I broke out is Vrndavana Pauganda. All of Krishna's pastimes he performed in this Pauganda age. So what happened was, this whole pastime of Agasura and the stealing of the boys and calves by Lord Brahma took 1 year. So although it took place when Krishna was 5 years old, nobody knew anything until the following year. So when Krishna comes home and Balaram is there, we enter the Pauganda age. The first pastime is the story of Kalia, who poisoned the river Yamuna, and Krishna jumped into the Yamuna, and Kalia grabbed Krishna, and for 2 hours Krishna was enveloped in the coils of Kalia, and all the residents of Vrindavan were in complete anxiety. Mother Yashoda ran into the Yamuna to save baby Krishna. She had to be held back. And everyone was in anxiety, complete anxiety. For 2 hours, you can imagine, if your young 6-year-old child was in the grips of a serpent, you would lose your mind. But Balaram, he was smiling. He understood nothing's going to happen to Krishna. What is this? He told all the residents of Vrindavan, don't worry. So after 2 hours, Krishna began to release himself, and he started to play with Kalia, and he started to dance on his heads, pushing them down. Just like Lord Shiva does Tandava Nritya, Krishna does Kalia Nritya. He dances on Kalia's heads. and the jewels on Kalia's heads were illuminating Krishna's feet. And Krishna's feet was making impressions on Kalia's head, leaving the dust of his footprints. And Krishna kept pushing and punishing. So Kalia is one of only 2 demons that Krishna did not kill. He spared him. Why? Because when Kalia was being punished and he started to die, he was starting to vomit poison, and his wives could see, oh, our husband is going to die. The Nagapatnis came and they prayed to Krishna. And they prayed very nice prayers. So even though their husband was a rascal, they were not. They were still great devotees of Krishna. And one of their prayers is quoted by Lord Chaitanya in his teachings. And several times Lord Chaitanya quoted this verse, that, my Lord, what did Kalia do in a previous life that he's able to get the dust of your lotus feet on his head? Why, even Lakshmi could not get that favor. What did our sinful rascal, and I use those words, what did our sinful rascal do that made him so fortunate to get the dust of your lotus feet on his head? So because of the prayers of the Nagapatnis, Kalia was spared. But Krishna said, but you have to leave. You cannot stay in my yum. You have poisoned and made everything dead. Get out of here. And Prabhupada said that Kalia went to Fiji. That's where he went. So there is a back history of Kalia, and it has to do with Garuda. You can read about that. That night, because it was late, they decided to sleep there on the bank of the Yamuna. And then there was a forest fire. And immediately all the residents of Vrindavan called out to Krishna, save us, save us. This is the mark of the residents of Vrindavan. As soon as there's any danger, they don't call 911. They call out to Krishna. He is the real 911. Just like every night before I go to sleep, I pray to Krishna, please protect me and my family and my Namahat families all over the world. Every night I pray for you. Yes, that's all right. You can thank me later. Because you're my family, my spiritual family. So Krishna, in order to save the residents of Vrindavan, swallowed the forest fire. Like Prabhupada said, Krishna can eat anything, even fire, because he's God. Then the next section is a description of a summer's day in Vrindavan. And then there's another forest fire, and this time it's the cows, the cows and the cowherd boys. And they too, as soon as they are engulfed by the fire, flames of the fire, they call out to Krishna. The cows also were calling out to Krishna in their way, please save us. And you all know Krishna's name, Govinda. He gives protection to, first of all, the cows and the brahmanas. And Prabhupada mentions, first is the cows, then the brahmanas, Govinda. Then the next section, Shukadeva Goswami gives a nice analogy of how to understand the rainy season and the autumn season in Vrindavan, and gives many examples and preaches various nice concepts explaining this symptom of the summer season can be compared to this thing in Vedic culture. Very nice section. Then the next item is what I call tree meditation. Tree meditation, one day Krishna and the cowherd boys are in the Vrindavan forest, and Krishna says to the cowherd boys, just see these trees. Their life is noble because they give shade to everyone. People come and take their fruits and flowers. People take shelter of the trees. So the trees are simply meant for giving. So Krishna was explaining that as devotees, our job is to give. Give. A Rakshasa simply takes and takes. Non-devotees, they take. And they definitely take more than they give. But a devotee gives. Devotee gives Krishna. And as we know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, anyone who preaches my message, there is no servant more dear to me than one who preaches my message. So if you want to be recognized by Krishna, go out and preach. Somehow or other, tell others about how wonderful is Krishna. If in the least you can just say to someone, Hare Krishna, or just say Hari Bol. Anything you can do, Krishna will recognize you. Don't be afraid to be a devotee of Krishna. Come out and be Krishna conscious. Then the next pastime, one day the cowherd boys are hungry and they approach Krishna and Balaram. Oh, we have not eaten. We're hungry. So Krishna tells the cowherd boys, okay, nearby there are some brahmanas. They're doing a yajna in order to go to the heavenly planets. I'm sure they will give you food. But don't mention me or Balaram. No, if you mention someone, don't mention me. Because they won't give you, because they're not my devotees. So the cowherd boys went, and the brahmanas were very busy in setting up for the fire sacrifice. They had no time for the cowherd boys. Don't bother us. Can't you see we're Paka brahmanas? We are busy here. We don't have time for you. Go away. So the cowherd boys went back to Krishna. They didn't give us anything. They wouldn't even give us the time of day. Krishna said, yes, that is the way of begging. Sometimes you will get, sometimes you will not get. But then Krishna said, now, go to the wives of those brahmanas, because they, unlike their husbands, are my pure devotees. So the cowherd boys did exactly what Krishna said. And as soon as they mentioned Krishna and Balaram, they didn't just give food. They packed the food themselves and brought it to Krishna and Balaram. That's how anxious they were to see Krishna. Not that they, okay, here, take it. No, they wanted to personally bring it. And when they went, they said to Krishna, okay, we're wives of brahmanas. We know a thing or two, because we've seen a thing or two. We know the philosophy. We know that anyone who surrenders to you, you have to give them shelter. So we're not going back to our husbands. We are going to stay here and take shelter of you. And Krishna said, no, that's not right. Your husbands need you. But the wives were insistent, no, you're supposed to give shelter. And Krishna said, no, I want you to go back. After this, your husbands will be different. So the Brahmins' wives were very obedient to Krishna. So they went back to their husbands. And by this time, the Brahmins realized that they had made a mistake. And they said to their wives, our wives are better than we are. We could not appreciate that God in the form of Krishna and Balaram had come to us on the plea of begging food. So our wives are much better than us. And the Brahmanas were thinking we should also surrender to Krishna like our wives. But they said, wait a second. Kamsa may find out and he will punish us. So they could not surrender to Krishna. But their wives, no problem surrendering to Krishna. So the Brahmanas condemned themselves. And then after this incident, Krishna releases Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna Dev. And at that time, when Krishna saved his father from the clutches of Varuna, because Nanda Maharaj took bath too early in the morning. So it was considered an offense to take bath so early. So he was arrested. So Krishna delivered his father from Varuna Dev. And at that time, Krishna showed the cowherd men what would happen to them after this lifetime. That they would go back to the spiritual world. Can you imagine? Tomorrow, you wake up and you're shown you are going to go at the end of life to the spiritual world. That's how nice Krishna is. He showed all the cowherd men, this is what's going to happen to you at the end of this life. The next section in my way of presenting, is called Parakiya Rasa. I think we'll have to end with Parakiya Rasa. We'll see how far it goes. By 4:30, I have to get ready for my next session. So Patakiya Rasa is the topmost transcendental relationship. We all know that there are 5 rasas with Krishna. Actually, technically only 4, but sometimes 5 is listed. Shantaras, adoration, veneration, awe, reverence. So some Vaishnavas, they don't accept that as a ras. But then there's dasya, servitude. Then dasya, dasya, sakya, friendship is the next highest. So first there's dasya, like Hanuman. He is in that mood of servant, Prahlad Maharaj. Then there's sakya, friendship with Krishna, like the cowherd boys. Then there's vatsalya, parental feelings, Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, Devaki, Vasudev. Then we come to Madhurya Rasa, the topmost relationship with Krishna. Madhurya, the sweetest of the rasas. One of our original core group Namahat members used to sing, Madhura Madhura Nam. So we know this word Madhuram so well. Sweet, sweeter than the sweetest. So this Madhurya Rasa has 2 divisions, Swakiya and Patakiya. Swakiya means Krishna is properly married as he is with the queens of Dwaraka and the relationship between Lakshmi and Narayan. That is called Swakiya, proper marriage, husband, wife, like that. But then there is an even higher transcendental mellow, which is very, very confidential. Therefore, I cannot go into much detail because it is confidential. And that is called Parakiya Rasa. Parakiya Rasa means not married, boyfriend and girlfriend. So, it's not proper to discuss so much on this topic. That you'll have to study on your own when you become qualified. But according to this Krishna book, the gopis during the day would remember Krishna throughout the day. Even though Krishna was not present, they would remember Krishna. And then they would also meditate on Krishna's flute. And there is a nice section in this Krishna book and Bhagavatam, the powerful effects of Krishna's flute. How when the calves hear the flute, they are drinking milk from the udders of the cows, but they're stuck because that sound of Krishna's flute stuns them. And the waters of the Yamuna, when it hears the sound of Krishna's flute, flows in reverse. Everything in Vrndavana becomes attracted to the sound of Krishna's flute. When Lord Brahma heard the sound of Krishna's flute at the dawn of creation, out from his mouth came Gayatri. That's how powerful is the sound. That's how Brahma got initiated. Some of you have been initiated in ISKCON. Fire sacrifice, this. Brahma's initiation, sound of Krishna's flute. Bas finish. He became twice born simply by hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. And Prabhupada explains, if you want to hear the sound of Krishna's flute, say hello to your little friend. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. You cannot buy Krishna's flute on Amazon.com. No. You want to hear the sound of Krishna's flute? You have to chant, 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 lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. One day when you're chanting, you will hear the sound of Krishna's flute. Sometimes that question is asked, Prabhu, I've been chanting 30 years. How much longer I got to chant? Prabhu, until you hear the sound of Krishna's flute, keep chanting. Then there is the pastime of the young unmarried Gopi girls worshipping goddess Katyayani in order to get Krishna as their husband. Each girl was privately praying to goddess Katyayani without the others knowing that I want to marry Krishna. At that time, Krishna teased the young gopis, stole their clothes, and he told them that in 1 year, your desire will be fulfilled. So at that time, they were at the age of 7. Krishna was 7 years old. So he said, in 1 year, your desire to have me as your husband will be fulfilled. So then, when Krishna was 8 years old, that night came, the Sharad Purnima, the full moon night of the autumn season, which is considered the most beautiful night of the year. And the gopis heard the sound of Krishna's flute. And as soon as they heard the sound of the flute, they dropped everything. If they were eating, they stopped eating and ran to the sound of Krishna's flute. If they were taking care of their bodies, stopped and ran. Taking care of their children, the husband, no matter what they were doing, they immediately stopped everything and ran. And some of their husbands and brothers and fathers prevented them from going. And those who were prevented from going, they gave up their lives. And in their spiritual bodies, they went to the Rasa Dance. The Rasa Dance took place, and there were different groups of gopis. Some are the eternal associates, Radharani, the original gopis. They had no problem. There were no checks. They were able to join Krishna, the Rasa Dance. Some gopis were special daughters of demigods who had taken birth as gopis. Some of them joined the Rasa Dance. Another group of gopis were the sages who had approached Lord Ram in the Dandakarana. And they had approached Ram saying, we know who you are and we want to have a relationship with you. And Ram said, no, in this life I have taken a vow, Eka Patni Vrat, only one wife. But next time, your desire will be fulfilled. So all those sages who approached Ram, they joined the Rasa Dance. And then also there was the prayers, the personified Vedas. So there were many groups of gopis. And those who were checked from going, they gave up their bodies and went there in their spiritual forms, because the Rasa Dance is a completely spiritual transaction. Lakshmi even wanted to join once the Rasa Dance. But the Rasa dance can only be performed when you have the body of a gopi. She wanted to join the Rasa dance in her opulent form as Lakshmi. Nope, can't go. No visa entry. You're not stamped. You have to take birth as the daughter of a gopi, get trained up like that, and then you can go to Rasa dance. And it's not a question of putting on a gopi skirt. No. You have to be the real thing. You have to be trained up by the gopis. So Krishna played his flute, the gopis assembled, and then Krishna teased the gopis. Why have you come? What are you doing here? It's the dead of night. You should be home with your families. You should return now. You have seen the beautiful forest and the full moon. Now go home. And the gopis were a little displeased with Krishna. And like the wives of the Brahmins, the gopis also said the same thing. Hey, we know what is what. We know that anyone who takes shelter of you, you have to give them shelter. We know this. We're not going back home. We are not moving 1 inch. You must accept us. So in this way, Krishna was defeated by the gopis. The Rasa dance began. And they were dancing with Krishna, and it was so nice. And at one point, the gopis were thinking, I am the most fortunate person in the whole universe. I am dancing with Krishna. So Krishna could detect, they have become a little proud, these gopis. I don't like my devotees to be proud. So Krishna disappeared. And when he disappeared, he left with Radharani, who led him deep into the forest. When Krishna disappeared from the gopis, they knew, that gopi that Krishna left with must have been a better devotee than us. Therefore, this is the only place in Bhagavatam where Radha's name appears. The exact word, Anyaradita, meaning the one who has worshipped Krishna better than anyone else. There's where Radha's name comes from. The best worshipper of Krishna. So since Krishna had left, all the gopis started to become crazy, transcendentally mad. And they were talking to the trees, to the animals, asking, have you seen Krishna? Where is Krishna? Have you seen him? Meanwhile, Radharani was leading Krishna. And Radharani said, I'm tired. I can't go anymore. Krishna, if you want me to go, you'll have to carry me. And Krishna said, even Radha has become proud? All right, Radha, get on my back. And as soon as she attempted to get on his back, Krishna disappeared from Radharani. Because Krishna does not want his devotees to become proud. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya teaches, wear around your neck for constant remembrance. Humility, 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 humility. But Prabhu, I'm humble. How much humble I can be? Don't worry. You cannot be too humble. Not possible. If you think you're humble, you're not. Keep being humble. So eventually Radharani met the other gopis. And although they were feeling a little upset and jealous, when they saw that Krishna left her too, they said, okay, you're one of us. So the gopis sat down on the bank of the river and they sang their Gopi Gita, the most elevated chapter in all 335 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. 10th Canto. It's right there. It's only 19 verses. Tava katamritam tapta jiva. Such nice prayers. Basically, the gopis are praying, Krishna, we have surrendered. Please come back to us. Now, while this was going on, Krishna was hiding himself, and he was seeing what the gopis were doing. And he realized, I left them, and still they don't leave me. Normally, if a boy and a girl go on a date and the boy does something like that, the girl says, I'm finished with this guy. Forget it. Too many fish in the sea. But the gopis stayed. So when Krishna saw that despite him mistreating them, they did not leave, Krishna said, And he told the gopis, the only reason I have returned is because of your pure, unalloyed devotion to me. That is the only thing that brought me back. Your pure love. Even though I left you, still, I hadn't forgotten you. I was just testing you to see. You have passed the test. So the Rasa dance again resumed, and it went on for a night of Brahma. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But somehow or other, at the same time, at one point, Krishna told the gopis, time to come back home. How to adjust that, I don't know. Okay? That you'll have to figure out on your own. It was a night of Brahma, but at the same time, Krishna said, you got to go back home. Figure it out. I can't. So the gopis returned home, and since that time, the gopis were always meditating on the sound of Krishna's flute and the way he danced with them. And then, later on, Uddhava is sent by Krishna with a message for the gopis, because by this time Krishna had left and did not return. And so Krishna was concerned. And so he sent Uddhava with a message. And when Uddhava was trying to read the message, Radharani became mad in ecstasy and was having a conversation with a bee. And she was accusing Krishna of so many things. But then she realized, the bee may go to Krishna and say what I said. So then when the bee returned, she changed her tune. And Uddhava read Krishna's message. He didn't show the message because when Krishna wrote the message, he was a little emotional. And so the writing was not proper. So Uddhava read the letter, and the letter said, my dear gopis, there is no such thing as separation. I am everywhere. I am all pervasive. So there is no question of separation. It's simply a matter of you seeing how I am, as the Bhagavad Gita says, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Krishna is everywhere in everything. The devotee has to learn how to see Krishna in each and every circumstance. In this way, Krishna will never be lost to the devotees. Just like this word Vasudev. Vasudev means all pervasive. So that's what I call this coronavirus, Vasudev virus, because it's worldwide, it's everywhere. No one is exempt from the Vasudev virus unless you are protected by Krishna. Okay, and when Uddhava stayed with the gopis for 2 months, at the end, he also had a similar realization that Brahma did. Uddhava learned, I cannot compare with these gopis. These gopis have so much love for Krishna, I cannot compare. So in my next life, I want to be a creeper or a plant or a bush outside of Vrndavana and get the dust of Krishna's lotus feet on my head. So that ends Parakiya Rasa. I'll do one more section. And this section is called Guovradan. So the Guovradan, every year we celebrate Guovradan. It's a great joy. Those of you who don't know, every year for at least 20 years, every year, we would do a big Anukut at Krishna Prema's house. We would have 108 preps. We would make a Guovradan hill. Devotees would bring Gopi Shila, and we would have over 100 devotees at his house. We did that year after year after year after year. Such a fan. Everyone would look forward to that Anukut program. So nice program. Just thinking about the prasad makes me hungry. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So one day, Krishna saw that his father was preparing a sacrifice similar to what the Brahmanas were doing. So Krishna said, "My dear father, what are you doing?" And Nanda Maharaj said, "Oh, we are a cowherd community. We live because of the cows, and the cows need grass, and the grass needs rain. So the rain comes from Indra. Every year we should do this worship of Indra so that we appreciate what he does for us." But Krishna, he had a different plan in mind. Krishna was thinking, Indra, that Indra's puffed up. I had to teach him a lesson. So Krishna started to spout an atheistic philosophy, karma mimamsa. Karma mimamsa means whether there's a God or not doesn't really matter. Do your job. That's all. If you don't do your job, if you don't do your work, how are you going to live? Doesn't matter God or this or that. Just do your job. That's all. But Nanda Maharaj said, no, it won't look good. We have to do this every year. We can't be ungrateful. But Krishna said, no, I don't want this. I want us to do a sacrifice by which we worship Govardhan Hill, the cows and the Brahmins, because they are the real maintainers of our livelihood. We are a cowherd community. We exist because of Govardhan Hill, the cows and the Brahmanas. So Nanda Maharaj said, okay, tell you what. We will do your Govardhan Puja, but first we will do the Indra. Krishna said, no, there's no time, not enough money. We're just going to do Govardhan. So Nanda Maharaj, he's also attracted to Krishna, so Krishna convinced him just to worship Govardhan Hill. See how powerful Krishna is. Even with an atheistic philosophy, he can convince someone to do something. So they did the worship of Govardhan Hill. They made a sumptuous feast. And if you read in Krishna book, Prabhupada lists all the items. And every time I read that list, I become super hungry. All the different food items. But there's no mention of tacos. No. He mentioned samosa, rasgulla, laddu, rice, pakora, halava. I didn't see burgers and tacos. Sorry. You cannot offer that on Govardhan Hill. Krishna likes certain things. Dal, rice, chapatis, like that. And Krishna said, everybody has to eat sumptuously. Even the dogs. Even the dogs have to eat sumptuously. And they were circumambulating Govardhan Hill. Krishna was also circumambulating. And on top of Govardhan Hill, Krishna expanded himself into a gigantic form that was eating all the offerings. And this gigantic form said, I am Govardhan Hill. And meanwhile, 7-year-old Krishna was also circumambulating the hill. And they were having a great anakut. Meanwhile, up in heaven, Indra is now fuming. Indra is so angry. And he blasphemes Krishna. These residents of Vrndavana have offended me. They are listening to this over-talkative child, Krishna. So Indra became crazy. He didn't recognize that this is his boss, Krishna. He saw Krishna as an over-talkative child. Would you call your father that? Would you address your father? Oh, father, you're an over-talkative child. No, you would get slapped. You would get beaten if you talk like that. So Indra became crazy. And so he called the clouds of devastation Sangvartaka. He said, I want you to go to Vrindavan, decimate, flood it, destroy these residents of Vrindavan. They have defied me. Yes. And the clouds were a little hesitant. No, I don't think we want to go. And just said, don't worry, I'll come with you. For 7 days and 7 nights, the rain poured. And the raindrops were the size of columns, pillars. And there was freezing cold and strong winds for 7 days. So Krishna, the cows came to Krishna, save us, save us. So again, first order of business, take care of the cows. Krishna lifted Guovradan hill and he told everyone, come underneath my umbrella of Guovradan hill. And everyone was amazed. Krishna was only 7 years old. How could he lift a mountain? And for 7 days they were underneath Guovradan hill and they were protected. After 7 days, Indra realized, uh-oh, I think I've made a mistake. So after 7 days, Indra told the Samvartaka cloud, stop. And then the rain subsided, the flood subsided. Indra came and begged forgiveness from Krishna. Indra came with his elephant Airavata, and also accompanying him was the transcendental Surabhi cow. And Indra offered prayers, and Krishna told Indra, Indra, this time I'm forgiving you, but don't be puffed up. Because if I like, at any time I can take everything away from you. You are Indra only because I allow you to be Indra. Remember this, Indra. You are not supreme. I am, not you. Don't be puffed up. And then they did the Abhishek of Krishna. Indra's elephant has Ganga water in its trunk, and the Surabhi cow did Abhishek with milk. And at this time, Krishna was awarded a special name. What was that special name? Govinda, Govinda. So we'll finish here. I have to get ready for my next program. So we'll end with a little bhajan. And we'll see you again next month. Yes, Srinam Radha. Next month again. I think we'll continue with this. What do you think, Krishna-lila? Because we got a lot more to do. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajacharya Stottra Satta Sri Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Arigor Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Guovradan ki jai. Vrndavana Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Yamuna Devi ki jai. Ganga Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the extended Namahat family in Santiago. All glories to the assembled devotees. As you can see, I have my advertisement. Please make a donation at narantara.com. Any amount, $1 million, whatever you can afford, will be greatly appreciated. I will bless you now individually.